Hello and welcome. This is a sports betting video, and I'm really more about talking about the plan and all mathematics upon sports handicapping. So the plan is to generate around 100 picks in sports betting in around 300 days or a little under a year, with an expected return of greater than or equal to 25% of a return on investment, which means for every 100 I spend, I expect to get 125 back. Being picky with selections and spending time to try and find as much value should enable a pick one every 3 days on average. And that means, well, I'll get into it as stuff that I've written. They, as in the bookmakers, are writing a test. It's not about the percentage they get on the test, rather how many incorrect answers they get. It would be in your advantage if you are hoping and trying to find mistakes and they answer a lot of questions. You as a teacher has a job and state if their answer is very much incorrect by, betting such. Long term, if you are correct about them being wrong, then you are a winner. That's how I look at sports handicapping. They come out and say, this team's minus 130, the other team's plus 110, or whatever. One side's this and one side is that. If they're in or around that number, they are correct on that test, and you can't bet either side. And if they're just a little bit wrong, well, you know what? You can't give them too much grief for it because now you got barely any return, meaning they say, the over-under for a game in basketball should be, say, 214. Well, if the real number should be 215, there's not much of an advantage of going over the total on 214 when it should be only 1 point higher. This is going back a few years, but I remember, these are approximate lines that I remember. They're just what my head is trying to, what I look. There was heavy juice. It's just how I got this one set up. But sometimes heavy juice, there's value. This is one of the cases where I found it. Finland plus 105 versus Canada minus 145. Where European ended up book closing this line as a favorite. I figured Finland had near a 70% chance to win this game, as Patrick Laine, William Nylander, and many other great future Finns were looking sweet to be great, and my research was showing that this was one of the weakest for this event in junior hockey Canada. I mean, weakest for Canada, and the strongest Finland team ever. So all the TV pundits on TSN and Sportsnet then were basically just, and what I was watching on YouTube, we're talking just how bad they felt this Canadian team really was for Canada. So when I was thinking about the math on it, I'm thinking, you know what, this is a spot where Finland might be they could be the more superior team. So I put a significant size wager on the Finland team there, and they got the job done. If you get 70% wins on plus 100, you would get 40% ROI with 140 back in 100 bets. I mean, those are just great ROI percentages to go for. So the plan is to find only occurrences where you see a 25% plus return. Your research has to be off by large levels for return for this to be a negative expected value. Meaning, if you think a play is a 25% and you're wrong, it can only return 10%. And in that case, be happy you still have a positive wager long term. For example, let's just assume a bookmaker says a spread of a game should be 10 points a team is favored by. But you come out and think, man, that's way too low or high or whatever. So you say it should be 14 or 6 or whatever. Well, if you say it should be 14, well, you're going to lay the points at 10. And maybe your research is wrong and it should be 11 and a half. Well, you know what? It's still a decent enough value. That's why, if you're a little wrong, that's why it's another reason it's good to be picky on your selections. And there was one All-Star game way back when, and it's a few years ago. I made a wager for DeMar DeRozan, then on the Toronto Raptors, and Russell Westbrook, then on the Oklahoma City team to win most valuable player for the game. I had good information that they were both strong players, and Russell Westbrook did win it for me. My bankroll is a little higher, and the next day I watched Pat Mayo talking with Mr. Freeberg, who suggested Danny Willett to win the Masters, and he got like 120 to 140 to 1 odds or something like that. And he's mentioned the line was dipping below 100 in some places at that time. And I had odds at where I was looking at around 115. I should have bet more. And I wish I would have. I seen the line on my sports book, and other sports books for that matter, go down to 80 and then 50 and so on. So I was happy long term. I got value for 1% long term win is 15% ROI. Meaning, if he's long term going to win one of every 100 times, and I'm getting 115 to 1 odds on it, then I'm going to basically play 100, win once, get back 115, paying 100 kind of deal. But if he wins 2% of the time, that means I'm going to get 2 out of 100. Well, that's even better. And that was a very, very fun weekend because it was just so awesome to be like, man, you just so grateful to be able to get the information, and you knew whether he was right or wrong. I'm just like, thank you, man. Thank you. And I've even had a chance to be able to thank him on the show, at least Pat Mayo, which has been fantastic. But really, that's what you're looking for. Now, granted, to get the result is always what happened. And for me, how it looked, it was like, okay, going in the event, it was like, man, you're just excited you have a real live shot. You realize you're probably going to lose, but you never know. Obviously, if there was no chance of winning, you wouldn't bet, but you know there is a chance. And then as the tournament goes on, you're like, yeah, it's out there. And then on the final day, you're like, well, he's live, but I mean, Jordan Spieth is going to win. And it was interesting because for me on that night or that day, it was getting close to dinner time in my local area. The tournament's pretty much over on Sundays at dinner time, Eastern time zone for golf anyway. And then I'm turning on the TV channel, so I put like Sportsnet on. Something's got a ticker on the bottom, and I see on the ticker that it says that Danny Willett was in first place. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then it was like on hole 17 or 18 to boot. This is like awesome. So I turned the channel on to watch the golf at the end. And then of course I see the highlights. If you watch the Masters, that was the tournament, the Masters, like 20. Ooh, geez, let me get my year straight. I'm living here at this place, so this would be 2016 maybe? I think that makes the most sense. It has to be 2016. So yeah, that's next slide. And I call this is the event of handicapping the cappers. And really that's like that. If you're getting any information on YouTube or any type of sources like that, it's really about trying to get the genuinity and of the people that you're getting it from. Because you could have, especially in the sports gambling business, there could be 20, 30, 50, hundreds of people giving you their research, their information, their thoughts, their ideas. And a lot of them are going to be spewing out a lot of crap, as they'll say, a lot of BS. And maybe they got intents that's going to be that way. And maybe they don't have the intent. They're just not that smart. They're just not that... Nothing against them. It's just, if you look at like any type of competitive field where there's 60, 80 people competing, you look at the best 5, the worst 5, and everyone in the middle. You look at some of the people in the middle and the worst end people, you're going to see those ones. So to try to find the best in that type of business, and I do that all the time. I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of people that go out and give information, and yet there's a very small amount of people. Freeberg in golf is one of them. And Pat Mayo as well too, in golf as well. That I'm really going to be really listening to when they are giving the information that they are giving. And even when they're giving it too at times, sometimes you want to feel sometimes when they're off, or even if it's even better, is nothing against the ones, again, you don't quote unquote disrespect, or the ones that you feel are less genuine or less as good. But it's magnificent when you can find those less as good individuals or whichever, and they actually on this one of those occasions, and you can tell that time, like, oh my goodness, they're onto something here, and they got very good information that I'm going to be taken serious here. I mean, it's hard to find those, but when you do, it's just an amazing situation to do. So I'm always trying to find the best that I can, and because of my poker experience of trying to read how humans are, not only from a conceptual level, but even on as weird as this sounds, on a spiritual level, as far as the subconscious and how our mind works, that's hard to do, and that's hard to get. I'm never going to get a good grasp on, an amazing grasp on it. I got a good grasp on it now, but I'll never get an amazing grasp on it. But just try to, like, as far as, like, I'm saying stuff as far as, like, when the natural sense is, when you can tell someone is giving you good or bad information from the other realm, if you know what I mean. On an instinctive level, I guess. I don't know. Another hard way to label what I'm talking about. I guess woo-woo stuff is another way of putting it. Anyway, let's now go on to my next slide. Your lines versus their lines. This is how I do hockey, which is my favorite sport. And really all sports, but hockey is the one I do this more often. And with what my goal, at one point, I'm going to be coming out putting my picks. I'm just going to put out my first pick, and it's going to be a huge premium play. And then I'll talk about how I'll do even though all picks will be free, I'll talk about how I'll do all my free picks or opinion picks after that. And those will be whatever. They're unlimited. I'm not going to commit to anything. And when I bet them, they'll be like such a small percentage of my premium picks. And everything I talk about is something I'm going to be wagering on. Your lines versus their lines again. So I calculate each team's chances of winning. The chances they will win, the minus 1.5, minus 1.0 as well, chances of over, under, stuff, and even miscellaneous props. I'm thinking, okay, let me get the math on it, the numbers on it. Maybe you got a prop on the chance of someone scoring. What's the percentage they score? Oftentimes I'll have to run my spreadsheet and do different things to get what I need to get done, but I'll do it when I need to do it. If the Ottawa Senators open in Toronto in the first game, I would give the Leafs about a 70% chance of winning maybe. And it could be higher, and there should be maybe 6.2 long-term goals. Now, of course, this is hypothetical, but in a given day, I'm going to go through my numbers, especially when there's 20, 30 games played. I know the player situations here and there, all whatever information, I know the goalies well. And a lot of times when I make hockey lines, I'll even put different, like, if this is the goalie and that's the goalie, I'll make 2 different or 3 different lines depending on the starting goalies. And sometimes it doesn't make a difference which team, if it's this guy or that guy, but sometimes it can make a huge difference. So in this case here, maybe I'll make lines of Ottawa plus 233 and Toronto minus 233. If I think the Leafs have a 67% chance of winning, then, okay, if the Leafs win, if the Leafs win, I state. Now, how do I get plus 233 and minus 233? The mathematics upon that is, let me just get my calculator. That's the easiest way of showing. So if I take 0.7 and I 1x it, let's just do 0.3 actually. 0.3 and I 1x it, I get 3.333. Which is plus 233. 210 would be plus 110. So therefore, the opposite number is minus 233. So that's how I'd end up calculating that. So therefore, if the Leafs win, maybe I feel they have a 67% chance of winning by multiple goals. One of the things I would calculate is, if that particular team wins on that particular night, what is that chance? It's so important to me. So therefore, if I bring back the calculator again, and there's a 70% chance of event A happening, the Leafs win. So if event A is true, that in that situation, what's the likelihood that on that win, they win by 2? And again, I got 67%. So basically, 2 of every 3 times they play, that team would win by 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever more. And 1 to 3 times by exactly 1. And more of those times would be in overtime. Because of the fact that more times than not, I realize in my handicap games like the Leafs, especially because I watch them all the time, although I watch a lot of different games and teams, that they're going to pull their goalie aggressively, and they're either going to, well, if they're up by a goal, they're probably got a good chance of scoring on that empty net. They're very good at scoring on empty nets. And then it's either going to end up that one team is going to score more times than not. So one goal games in regulation are becoming very much a dying breed. So there's 0.469. So if I 1x this number, I get 113, like 213 that is. So that's how I would be coming up with these numbers. So when I'd be looking at these, if I come out and see Vegas has the money line at, say, Toronto minus 260 and Ottawa at plus 210, plus 220, I got nothing I'm going to do on that. And for me to play Toronto minus a goal and a half, if I feel the line is plus 113, I'm going to need at least, 140, 150, 160 for a really good bet. And if Ottawa is, I feel, minus 113 at plus a goal and a half, then I'm going to want at least plus 115, plus 110. And to make it a bet. Because, again, I want to be really picky with my selections. If I'm going to do opinion play, if, say, for example, the line at Toronto minus 1 goal and a half is set at, say, plus 135, then that would be an opinion play. But if I got a line at plus 165, that's a premium play. Looking at the mathematics upon such. And again, if you go to any sports book, pretty much all of them these days, it's becoming more and more aggressive. You look at all the player props they have, all the special ways of betting, third quarter, halftime, third period lines, second period lines, double chances, just so many different ways. Like I said in the intro, they're putting up more questions. And they could get, and you think of one, they could put out 20 different answers out and get half of them right. That means you got 10 value plays. Okay. Or they could put out 1,000 and get 927 of them right, or 935 of them right. And if you're looking for the best value, yeah, maybe you can find it with the NFL game here, with any of the sides or totals, and even NBA. But you really, really got to look deep into some of these other sports if you can do it and get some huge value. Or the props within those big sports, just more specialty based. Especially, again, when you can run the mathematics. What is the percentage likelihood of that event happening versus the price that you were being offered? If I figured, if the odds for Ottawa, it was like, say, plus, say they figured Toronto was a huge favorite. I came up with this number, and they had Toronto at minus 360 and Ottawa at plus 300 or something. Yeah, maybe I'll put a small dab on Ottawa. Nothing a great value, but plus 230 versus 3. But this is a spot where I'm making a bet on something I think I'm going to lose, but it's a good bet. Because more times than not, when I make that style of large bets, if I hit 36%, whatever are the big numbers, then it's going to be profitable for me. And the reason why I want to do this is nothing more than really a bucket list kind of, yeah, I did it kind of deal. Because I've never done it. I mean, it's been years and years of knowing how to do it and figuring out bits and pieces throughout the years and decades, which is exactly what I talk about, is making sure you're really picky on those strategies. And the more you focus on the plays, it shouldn't be that difficult, I think, to average a pick every 3 days. I think you could even crush that number, given that the bookmakers, make too many wagers or too many offerings. And I think for myself, the best chances of me starting to get this thing going is in hockey season. So I want to kick it off, my first pick, on when I really see, one of my strategies has been, I mentioned that Finland game. I could talk about a Baltimore-Toronto baseball game I just crushed one time. I've had several different occasions of that type of nature where I'm like, yeah, that's a good bet. And even just recently, I'm like, yeah, do this, will be good. And then some of the hockey bets this last season, I'm like, even speaking with some good friends, I'm like, yeah, this is a spot where betting on Boston is good, or betting the under here is good or something. And almost every single time it's right. Well, at least it was just 6 I never bet it. But I mean, not really, because I was crushing the DraftKings fantasy sports. And I will in the future, which is hopefully a month from now, December 16th, 2020. I'm making this video, uploading it on the 17th. So therefore, I've never won this game. Or DraftKings Fantasy Sports I've won. Poker, yeah, I've taken that game down. And trading on the cryptocurrency market, these are all games that I've taken for decent figure scores. But not this. So to be able to say for one time that I could go out, put 100 selections on YouTube, say I'm doing this before the first pick even comes out, and then be successfully right, that would just be phenomenal. So something I kind of want to get, at least for like one small period of time, be the best or one of the best sport handicappers in the world. And then whether I continue to do it after that or not, we'll see in time. No 5-figure wins on this one, but I also am a profitable player at bingo. Although I haven't played that game in probably close to a quarter century. I haven't played it this millennium, I don't think. Maybe in the early 2000s, I don't know. But what I used to do in the 90s anyway was get lucky, I guess. But also, like, what kind of skill can I put in? I mean, how can you have an advantage in bingo? Well, I tried to find it, and I found some, which was figuring out the days and time frames in which participation levels would be very low. Thus, the mathematical odds of your paybacks, the chances of winning would go up. So I remember saying to my friends back then, especially because they had the ones that start at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or whatnot, I'm like, this could be interesting. And I think I did okay on those, although I think the only reason why I'm profiting is because I hit the $1,000 mark twice on it. So I won $2,000, and then all my miscellaneous subsidiary prizes after that. I mean, what did I spend on it? Like maybe $1,500 on it, maybe 12, 15, 16, 18. So that's why I know I'm up in that game. Thank you for tuning in. And by the way, I don't suggest playing that anything other than just for having a good time or for social entertainment purposes and whatnot. For this here, this is a combination of entertainment, investing, game competition / game theory. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.